Okay, here we are once again, and we are ready, and I'm on the wrong screen. What am I doing? We are ready to do some reading in Forbidden History. So, we are on to, well, we're still reading in the Ancient High-Tech section of the book, and we've got two more, and they look to be both about Egypt and the pyramids. So we'll just jump straight into it. Sit back, pour yourself a beverage, and let's go. So this is Article 30, an engineer in Egypt. Did the ancient Egyptians possess tool-making skills comparable to those of the Space Age? By Christopher Dunn. Within the past 3 years, artifacts established as icons of ancient Egyptian study have developed a new aura. There are suggestions of controversy, cover-ups, and conspiracy to squelch or ignore data that promises to shatter conventional academic thinking regarding prehistoric society. A powerful movement is intent on restoring to the world a heritage that has been partly destroyed and undeniably misunderstood. This movement consists of specialists in various fields who, in the face of fierce opposition from Egyptologists, are cooperating with each other to effect changes in our beliefs of prehistory. The opposition by Egyptologists is like the last gasp of a dying man. In the face of expert analysis, they are striving to protect their cozy tenures by arguing engineering subtleties that make no sense whatsoever. In a recent interview, an Egyptologist ridiculed theorists who present different views of the pyramids, claiming their ideas are the product of overactive imaginations stimulated by the consumption of beer. Okay, there's a little picture here. I hope you can see it. I'll read the caption first. It says, "Wax reveals machined perfection of curve in Giza stone, photographed by Christopher Dunn." So it's this one. I don't see the wax there. Come on, focus. There we go. Not sure where the wax itself is, but machined perfection of a curve. Okay. One wonders if these were attempts to prove the primitive methods are capable of building the Egyptian pyramids, or the opposite. Attempts to execute such conventional theories have not revealed the theories to be correct. Do we need to revise the theory, or will we continue to educate our young with erroneous data? In August 1984, I published an article in Analog magazine entitled "Advanced Machining in Ancient Egypt," based on Pyramids of the Temple of Giza by Sir William Flanders Petrie, the world's first Egyptologist, published in 1883. Since that article's publication, I have been fortunate enough to visit Egypt twice. On each occasion, I left Egypt with more respect for the industry of the ancient pyramid builders, an industry, by the way, whose technology does not exist anywhere in the world today. In 1986, I visited the Cairo Museum and gave a copy of my article and a business card to its director. He thanked me kindly, then threw my offering into a drawer with sundry other stuff and turned away. Another Egyptologist led me to the tool room to educate me in the methods of the ancient masons by showing me a few tool cases that housed primitive copper implements. I asked my host about the cutting of granite, as this was the focus of my article. He explained how a slot was cut in the granite, and wooden wedges soaked with water would then be inserted. The wood swelled, creating pressure that split the rock. This still did not explain how copper implements were able to get to cut granite, but he was so enthusiastic with his dissertation, I chose not to interrupt. And there's another picture here. And I see there's a ad going on. Is it still? There we go. Okay. Evidence of the pyramid builders' true quarrying methods. A large hole drilled in the bedrock near the unfinished obelisk at the Aswan quarry. So it's another picture. I don't know if it's going to show up very well. It's not the best picture. Focus. There we go. That's as good as it gets. Sorry. But it's a drilled hole, which is in granite. You can't do that with copper. All right. I was musing over the statements made by the Egyptologist Dr. I.E.S. Edwards in Ancient Egypt. Book title. Edwards said that to cut the granite, quote, axes and chisels were made of copper hardened by hammering, end quote. This is like saying, to cut this aluminum saucepan, they fashioned their knives out of butter. True. Even work-hardened copper is not strong enough to cut granite. It's just not. My host animatedly walked me over to a nearby travel agent, encouraging me to buy plane tickets to Aswan, where, he said, quote, the evidence is clear. You must see the quarry marks there and the unfinished obelisk, end quote. Dutifully, I bought the tickets and arrived at Aswan the next day. The Aswan quarries were educational. The obelisk weighs approximately 440 tons. However, the quarry marks I saw did not satisfy me as being the only means by which the pyramid builders quarried their rock. Located in a channel that runs the length of the obelisk is a large hole drilled into the bedrock hillside, measuring approximately 12 inches in diameter and 3 feet deep. The hole was drilled at an angle, with the top intruding into the channel space. The ancients must have used drills to remove material from the perimeter of the obelisk, knocked out the webs between the holes, and then removed the cusps. While strolling around the Giza Plateau later, I started to question the quarry marks at Aswan even more. I also questioned why the Egyptologist had deemed it necessary that I fly to Aswan to look at them. I was to the south of the second pyramid when I found an abundance of quarry marks of a similar nature. The granite casing stones which had sheathed the second pyramid were stripped off and lying around the base in various stages of destruction. Typical to all of the granite stones worked on were the same quarry marks that I had seen at Aswan earlier in the week. This discovery confirmed my suspicion of the validity of Egyptologists' theories on the ancient pyramid builders' quarrying methods. If these quarry marks distinctively identify the people who created the pyramids, why would they engage in such a tremendous amount of extremely difficult work only to destroy their work after having completed it? It seems to me that these kinds of quarry marks were from a later period of time and were created by people who were interested only in obtaining granite without caring where they got it from. There is another diagram. It's about measuring that curvature from the first picture. I will go ahead and show it to you. I'm not sure if it'll show up either. There we go. So that is showing that curvature. All right. Not caring where they got it from. All right, there we are. One can see demonstrations of primitive stone cutting in Egypt if one goes to Saqqara. Being alerted to the presence of tourists, workers will start chipping away at limestone blocks. It doesn't surprise me that they choose limestone for their demonstration, for it is a soft, sedimentary rock and can be easily worked. However, one won't find any workers plowing through granite, an extremely hard igneous rock made up of feldspar and quartz. Any attempt at creating granite, diorite, and basalt artifacts on the same scale as the ancients, but using primitive methods, would meet with utter and complete failure. Yeah, actually, just as a side note, for anybody that has ever studied primitive fire making, high carbon steel is what you use for the steel. For the flint, it's just a hard rock, and quartz is hard enough to shave off microscopic particles from that high carbon steel. And that is actually what combusts. It's the steel, not the quartz. So that tells you right there, if quartz can do that, and granite is made up partly of quartz, there's no way copper could ever even scratch it. Just a side note. Those Egyptologists who know that work-hardened copper will not cut granite have dreamed up a different method. They propose that the ancients used small, round diorite balls, another extremely hard igneous rock, with which they bashed the granite. How could anyone who has been to Egypt and seen the wonderful, intricately detailed hieroglyphs cut with amazing precision in granite and diorite statues, which tower 15 feet above an average man, propose that this work was done by bashing the granite with a round ball? The hieroglyphs are amazingly precise, with grooves that are square and deeper than they are wide. They follow precise contours, and some have grooves that run parallel to each other, with only a 0.03-inch wide wall between the grooves. Sir William Flinders Petrie remarked that the grooves could have been cut only with a special tool that was capable of plowing cleanly through the granite without splintering the rock. Bashing with small balls never entered Petrie's mind. But then Petrie was a surveyor whose father was an engineer. Failing to come up with a method that would satisfy the evidence, Petrie had to leave the subject open. We would be hard-pressed to produce many of these artifacts today, even using our advanced methods of manufacturing. The tools displayed as instruments for the creation of these incredible artifacts are physically incapable of coming even close to reproducing many of the artifacts in question. Along with the enormous task of quarrying, cutting, and erecting the Great Pyramid and its neighbors, thousands of tons of hard igneous rock, such as granite and diorite, were carved with extreme proficiency and accuracy. After standing in awe before these engineering marvels and then being shown a paltry collection of copper implements in the tool case at the Cairo Museum, one comes away with a sense of frustration, futility, and wonder. Sir William Flinders Petrie recognized that these tools were insufficient. He admitted in his book of in his book Pyramids and Temples of Giza, and expressed amazement and stupefaction regarding the methods the ancient Egyptians used to cut hard igneous rock, crediting them with methods that we are, quote, we are only now coming to understand, end quote. So why do modern Egyptologists identify this work with a few primitive copper instruments and small round balls? It makes no sense whatsoever. While browsing through the Cairo Museum, I found evidence of lathe turning on a large scale. A sarcophagus lid had distinctive indications. Its radius terminated with a blend radius at shoulders on both ends. The tool marks near these corner radii are the same as those I have witnessed on objects that have an internment cut. Petrie also studied the sawing methods of the pyramid builders. He concluded that their saws must have been at least 9 feet long. Again, there are subtle indications of modern sawing methods on the artifacts Petrie was studying. The sarcophagus in the king's chamber, inside the Great Pyramid, has saw marks on the north end that are identical to saw marks I've seen on modern granite artifacts. He said sarcophagus in the king's chamber. There is a rougher than the pyramids, kind of stone box in there, but most people don't think it was ever actually a sarcophagus. In case you didn't know. The artifacts representing tubular drilling studied by Petrie are the most clearly astounding and conclusive evidence yet presented to identify, with little doubt, the knowledge and technology in existence in prehistory. The ancient pyramid builders used a technique for drilling holes that is commonly known as trepanning. This technique leaves a central core and is an efficient means of hole making. For holes that didn't go all the way through the material, the craftsman would reach a desired depth and then break the core out of the hole. It was not just the holes that Petrie was studying, but also the cores cast aside by the masons who had done some trepanning. Regarding tool marks that left a spiral groove on a core taken out of a hole drilled into a piece of granite, he wrote, quote, "The spiral of the cut sinks 1/10 of an inch in the circumference of 6 inches, or 1 in 60, a rate of plowing out of the quartz and feldspar which is astonishing," end quote. For drilling these holes, there is only one method that satisfies the evidence. Without any thought to the time in history when these artifacts were produced, analysis of the evidence clearly points to ultrasonic machining. This is the method that I proposed in my article in 1984, and so far no one has been able to disprove it. In 1994, I sent a copy of the article to Robert Bovell, author of The Orion Mystery, Unlocking the Secrets of the Pyramids, who then passed it on to Graham Hancock, author of Fingerprints of the Gods, The Evidence of Earth's Lost Civilization. After a series of conversations with Hancock, I was invited to Egypt to participate in a documentary with him, Bovell, and John Anthony West. In February 22, 1995, at 9 a.m., I had my first appearance of being on camera. And now I'm on camera every single day, but for him it was a special thing back in 95. This time with the express intent of inspecting features I had identified on my previous trip in 1986, I took some tools with me. A flat ground piece of steel, commonly known as a parallel in tool shops. It is about 6 inches long and a 1/4 inch thick, with edges ground flat within 0.0002 inches. So 200,000, 2/10,000ths. An interrapid indicator, a wire counter gauge, contour gauge, a device that forms around shapes and hard-forming wax. While there, I came across and was able to measure some artifacts produced by the ancient pyramid builders that proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that highly advanced and sophisticated tools and methods had been employed by them. The first object I checked for close precision was a sarcophagus inside the second Khafra's pyramid on the Giza Plateau. I climbed inside the box and with a flashlight and the parallel was astounded to find the surface on the inside of the box perfectly smooth and perfectly flat. Placing the edge of the parallel against the surface, I lit my flashlight behind it. There was no light coming through the surface. No matter where I moved, the parallel vertical horizontally sliding it along as one would a gauge on a precision surface plate. I couldn't detect any deviation from a perfectly flat surface. A group of Spanish tourists found it extremely interesting too and gathered around me as I was becoming quite animated at this point, exclaiming only into my tape recorder, "Space Age Precision." The tour guides were becoming quite animated too. I sensed that they probably didn't think it was appropriate for a live foreigner to be where they believed the dead Egyptian should rest, so I respectfully removed myself from the sarcophagus and continued my examination of it from the outside. There were more features of this artifact that I wanted to inspect, of course, but I didn't have the freedom to do so. So apparently that's a finer box than I remember. I thought it was kind of a rough box, but maybe I'm thinking of a different one that was found elsewhere. My mind was racing as I lowered my frame into the narrow confines of the entrance shaft and climbed outside. As I did so, my mind was reeling. The inside of a huge granite box finished off to a precision that we reserve for precision surface plates. Oh, that was a question. How had they done this? It would be impossible to have done this by hand. While being extremely impressed with the artifact, I was even more impressed with other artifacts found at another site in the rock tunnels at the Temple of Serapeum at Saqqara, the site of the Step Pyramid and the Zoser's tomb. In these dark, dusty tunnels are housed 21 huge basalt boxes. They weigh an estimated 65 tons each and are finished off to the same precision as the sarcophagus in the second pyramid. The final artifact I inspected was a piece of granite I quite literally stumbled across while strolling around the Giza Plateau later that day. I concluded after doing a preliminary check of this piece that the ancient pyramid builders had to have used machinery that followed precise counters in 3 axes to guide the tool to create it. Beyond the incredible precision, normal flat surfaces being simple geometry may be explained away by simple methods. This piece, though, drives us beyond the question normally pondered: what tools were used to cut it? To a more far-reaching question: what guided the cutting tool? These discoveries have more implications for understanding the technology used by the ancient pyramid builders than anything that heretofore uncovered. The interpretation of these artifacts depends on engineers and technologists. When presenting this material to a local engineer club, I was gratified by the response of my peers. They saw the significance. They agreed with the conclusions. While my focus was on the methods used to produce them, some engineers, ignoring the Egyptologists' proposed uses for these artifacts, asked what were they doing with them. They were utterly astounded by what they saw. The interpretation and understanding of a civilization's level of technology cannot and should not hinge on the preservation of a written record for every technique that it had developed. The nuts and bolts of our society do not always make good copy, and a stone mural will more than likely be cut to convey an ideological message rather than the technique used to inscribe it. Records of the technology developed by our modern civilization rest in media that are vulnerable and could conceivably cease to exist in the event of a worldwide catastrophe, such as a nuclear war or another ice age. Consequently, after several thousand years, an interpretation of an artisan's methods may be more accurate than an interpretation of his language. The language of science and technology doesn't have the same freedom as speech. So even though the tools and machines have not survived the thousands of years since their use, we have to assume by objective analysis of the evidence that they obviously did exist. And that is the end of that article. So, very interesting. I was wrong about the box. I don't know what one I'm thinking of. They found maybe it was one of the other pyramids. It had to be one of the other pyramids, but they found a box in it, but it was way rough compared to the precision of the pyramid itself. It was like it was added later on. But now I don't remember where that one was. Anyway, so let's move on to the next one. This one's also by Christopher Dunn. This is Article 31, The Giza Power Plant, Technologies of Ancient Egypt. A new book challenges conventional wisdom on the intended purpose of the Great Pyramid. By Christopher Dunn. And there is a big note here by the editor, which is J. Douglas Kenyon. In the summer of 1997, Atlantis Rising was contacted by a scientist involved in government research into non-lethal acoustical weapons. He said his team had analyzed the Great Pyramid using the most advanced tools available and concluded that its builders used sophisticated geometries that we have only recently begun to understand, way beyond Euclidean, or any of the other familiar ancient systems. Moreover, we were told the analysis indicated that the only way to understand the configuration of the chambers in the Great Pyramid was in acoustical terms, in other words, by the sophisticated manipulation of sound. For the weapon designer, that meant the Great Pyramid was, in all probability, a weapon, an extremely powerful one at that. Unfortunately, for reasons that remained unclear, we soon found ourselves unable to contact the scientist again, and we were left with a tantalizing bit of information that we could not corroborate. However, as fate would have it, one of the most important investigations of the acoustical potential of the Great Pyramid was being conducted by an old friend of ours, Christopher Dunn. Chris has written a book entitled The Giza Power Plant, Technologies of Ancient Egypt, in which he produces an overwhelming body of evidence that accounts for many previously unexplained anomalies. In it, he tells us that the Giza Pyramid was a machine that captured the acoustic energies of the Earth to produce awesome power. In this article, Chris excerpts and edits a brief summary of the arguments in his book. Signed, Editor. Sit up here and get serious after a sip. Okay, so on to the article. And there are a couple of small pictures here. I'll show them to you. I'm not sure you'll get much out of them, but I'm going to show them to you anyway. All right. The evidence carved into the granite artifacts in Egypt clearly points to manufacturing methods that involve the use of machinery, such as lathes, milling machines, ultrasonic drilling machines, and high-speed saws. They also possess attributes that cannot be produced without a system of measurement that is equal to the system of measurement we use today. Their accuracy was not produced by chance, but rather is repeated over and over again. After I assimilated the data regarding the ancient Egyptians' manufacturing precision and their possible and in some instances probable methods of machining, I suspected that to account for the level of technology the pyramid builders seem to have achieved, they must have had an equally sophisticated energy system to support it. One of the pressing questions we raise when we discuss ancient ultrasonic drilling of granite is, what did they use as a source of power? A still more forceful inquiry regarding the use of electricity necessary to power ultrasonic drills or heavy machining equipment that may have been used to cut granite is quote, where are their power plants, end quote. Obviously, there are no structures from the ancient world that we can point to and identify as fission reactors or turbine halls. And why should we have to? Isn't it a bit misguided of us to form an assumption that the ancient power plants were even remotely similar to ours? Nevertheless, there may be some fundamental similarities between ancient and modern power supplies in that power plants in existence today are quite large and need a supply of water for cooling and steam production. If such an advanced society existed in prehistory, and if indeed it had an energy system, we could logically surmise that its power plants, in all probability, would have been the largest construction projects it would have attempted. It also may follow as the largest creation of the society. Those power plants would stand a good chance of surviving a catastrophe and the erosion of the elements during the centuries that followed. And there is, it's just Christopher Dunn at his home computer. I don't see any reason to show you that one. The pyramids easily meet these requirements. These geometric relics of the past, which have been studied, speculated about, and on which so much debate has centered, are located near a water supply, the Nile River, and indeed are the largest building projects that this ancient society completed. In light of all the evidence that suggests the existence of a highly advanced society utilizing electricity in prehistory, I began to consider seriously the possibility that the pyramids were the power plants of the ancient Egyptians. Like just about every other student of the Egyptian pyramids, my attention was focused on the Great Pyramid, primarily because this is the one that everybody else's attention had been focused on, resulting in more research data being available for study. The reports of each successive researcher's discoveries inside the Great Pyramid are quite detailed. It is as though researchers became obsessed with reporting data regardless of how insignificant it may have seemed. Much of their data focuses on the dimensional and geometric relationship between the Great Pyramid and Earth. The other picture just says the Great Pyramid and Earth in resonance, and it shows the pyramids with a little thing of Earth in a spiral. Okay, I'll show it, but that's it. That's all it is. Okay. To review John Taylor's findings, a pyramid with an inch is 0.001 inch larger than a British inch. There are 25 pyramid inches in a cubit, and there are 365.24 cubits in the square base of the Great Pyramid. There are 365.24 days in a calendar year. One pyramid inch is equal in length to 1/500 millionth of Earth's axis of rotation. This relationship suggests that not only were the builders of the Great Pyramid knowledgeable about the dimension of the planet, but they also based their measurement system on them. What else is unique about the Great Pyramid? Although it is a pyramid in shape, its geometry possesses an astounding approximation of the unique properties of a circle or sphere. The pyramid's height is in relationship to the perimeter of its base as the radius of a circle is in relation to its circumference. A perfectly constructed pyramid with an exact angle of 51 degrees, 51 minutes, 14.3 seconds has the value pi incorporated into its shape. Further, understanding of this relationship requires the study of not just every detail of the Great Pyramid, but also those of Earth. Earth is a dynamic, energetic body that has supported civilization's demand for fuel for centuries. To date, this demand has been predominantly for energy in the form of fossil fuels. More recently, scientific advances have allowed us to tap into the power of the atom and further research in this area promises greater advances in the future. This is 20 years ago. There is, however, another form of abundant energy in the Earth that, in its most basic form, has, for the most part, been largely ignored as a potential source of usable energy. It usually gets our attention when it builds up to a point of destruction. That energy is seismic, and it is the result of the Earth's plates being driven by the constant agitation of the molten rock within the Earth. The tides are contained not only within the oceans of the world, the continents too are in constant movement, rising and falling in as much as a foot as the moon orbits Earth. The Earth's energy includes mechanical, thermal, electrical, magnetic, nuclear, and chemical action, each a source for sound. It would follow, therefore, that the energy at work in the Earth would generate sound waves that would be related to the particular vibration of the energy creating it and the material through which it passes. The audible hum of an we're into an ad. I'll hold. Okay. The audible hum of an electric motor operating at 3,600 RPM would fall well below the level of human hearing if it were to slow down to one revolution every 24 hours, as in the case of Earth. What goes unnoticed as we go about our daily lives is our planet's inaudible fundamental pulse or rhythm. On the other end of the scale, any electric stimulation within the Earth of piezoelectric materials, such as quartz, would generate sound waves above the range of human hearing. Materials undergoing stress within the Earth can emit bursts of ultrasonic radiation. Materials undergoing plastic deformation emit a signal of lower amplitude than when the deformation is such as to produce cracks. Ball lightning has been speculated to be gas ionized by electricity from quartz-bearing rock, such as granite, that is subject to stress. I can feel my voice starting to want to go, so I'm glad we are not too far from done here. Because the Earth constantly generates a broad spectrum of vibrations, we could utilize vibration as a source of energy if we developed suitable technology. Naturally, any device that attracted greater amounts of this energy than is normally being radiated from the Earth would greatly improve the efficiency of the equipment. Because energy will inherently follow the path of least resistance, any device offering less resistance to this energy than the surrounding medium through which it passes would have a greater amount of energy channeled through it. Keeping all of this in mind and knowing that the Great Pyramid is a mathematical integer of the Earth, it may not be so outlandish to propose that the pyramid is capable of vibrating at a harmonic frequency of the Earth's fundamental frequency. In the Giza power plant technologies of ancient Egypt, I have amassed a plethora of facts and deductions based on sober consideration of the design of the Great Pyramid and nearly every artifact found within it. When taken together, these all support my premise that the Great Pyramid was a power plant and the King's Chamber is its power center, facilitated by the element that fuels our sun, hydrogen, and uniting the energy of the universe with that of the Earth. The ancient Egyptians converted vibrational energy into microwave energy. For the power plant to function, the designers and operators had to induce vibration in the Great Pyramid that was in tune with the harmonic resonant vibrations of Earth. Once the pyramid was vibrating in tune with Earth's pulse, it became a coupled oscillator and could sustain the transfer of energy from the Earth with little or no feedback. The three smaller pyramids on the east side of the Great Pyramid may have been used to assist the Great Pyramid in achieving resonance. Much like today, we use small gasoline engines to start large diesel engines. So let us now turn the key on this amazing power plant to see how it operated. Oy, 4 more pages, almost. All right, well, the Giza power plant. The Queen's Chamber, located in the center of the pyramid and directly below the King's Chamber, contains peculiarities entirely different from those observed in the King's Chamber. The characteristics of the Queen's Chamber indicate that its specific purpose was to produce fuel, which is of paramount importance for any power plant, although it would be difficult to pinpoint exactly what process took place inside the Queen's Chamber. It appears that a chemical reaction repeatedly took place there. The residual substance that process left behind the salts on the chamber wall, and what can be deduced from artifacts, grappling hook and cedar-like wood, and structural details, Gantenbrink's door, for example, are too prominent to be ignored. They all indicate that the energy created in the King's Chamber was the result of the efficient operation of the hydrogen-generating Queen's Chamber. The equipment that provided the primal pulses are most likely housed in the subterranean pit. Before or at the time the key was turned to start the priming pulses, a supply of chemicals was pumped into the northern and southern shafts of the Queen's Chamber, filling them until contact was made between the grapnel hook and the electrodes that are sticking out of the door, seeping through the lefts in the Queen's Chamber. These chemicals combined to produce hydrogen gas, which filled the interior passageways and chambers of the pyramid. The waste from the spent chemicals flowed along the horizontal passage and down the well shaft. Oh, okay. Induced by priming pulses of vibration, tuned to the resonant frequency of the entire structure, the vibration of the pyramid gradually increased in amplitude and oscillated in harmony with the vibrations of the earth. Harmonically coupled with the earth, vibrational energy then flowed in abundance from the earth through the pyramid and influenced a series of tuned Helmholtz-type resonators housed in the Grand Gallery, where the vibration was converted into airborne sound. By virtue of the acoustical design of the Grand Gallery, the sound was focused through the passage leading to the King's Chamber. Only frequencies in harmony with the resonant frequency of the King's Chamber were allowed to pass through an acoustic filter, which was housed in the antechamber. Okay, the King's Chamber was the heart of the Giza power plant, an impressive power center comprising thousands of tons of granite containing 55% silicon quartz crystal. The chamber was designed to minimize any damping of vibration, and its dimensions created a resonant cavity that was in harmony with the incoming acoustical energy. As the granite vibrated in sympathy with the sound, it stressed the quartz in the rock and stimulated electrons to flow by what is known as the piezoelectric effect. The energy that filled the... I just learned about piezoelectric energy recently, and there are theories about it causing hallucinations. And one of the places where they think it happens is Loch Ness. So, I don't know. Just a side note. The energy that filled the King's Chamber at that point became a combination of acoustical energy and electromagnetic energy. Both forms of energy covered a broad spectrum of harmonic frequencies, from the fundamental infrasonic frequencies of the Earth to the ultrasonic and higher electromagnetic microwave frequencies. The hydrogen freely absorbed this energy, for the designers of the Giza power plant had made sure that the frequencies at the King's Chamber resonated were harmonics of the frequency at which hydrogen resonates. As a result, the hydrogen atom, which consists of one proton and one electron, efficiently absorbed this energy, and its electron was pumped to a higher energy state. The northern shaft served as a conduit or a waveguide, and its original metal lining, which passed with extreme precision through the pyramid from the outside, served to channel a microwave signal into the king's chamber. The microwave signal that flowed through this waveguide may have been the same signal that we know today is created by the atomic hydrogen that fills the universe and it is constantly bombarding Earth. This microwave signal probably was reflected off the outside face of the pyramid, then focused down the northern shaft. Traveling through the king's chamber and passing through a crystal box amplifier located in its path, the input signal increased in power as it interacted with the highly energized hydrogen atoms inside the resonating box, amplifier, and chamber. Wow, okay. This interaction forced the electrons back to their natural ground state. In turn, hydrogen atoms released a packet of energy of the same type and frequency as the input signal. This stimulated emission was entrained with the input signal and followed the same path. The process built exponentially, occurring trillions of times over. What entered the chamber as a low-energy signal became a collimated parallel beam of immense power as it was collected in a microwave receiver housed in the south wall of the king's chamber and was then directed through the metal-lined southern shaft to the outside of the pyramid. This tightly collimated beam was the reason for all the science, technology, craftsmanship, and untold hours of work that went into designing, testing, and building the Giza power plant. The ancient Egyptians had a need for this energy. It was most likely used for the same reason we would use it today, to power machines and appliances. We know from examining Egyptian stone artifacts that ancient craftsmen must have created them using machinery and tools that needed electricity to run. However, the means by which they distributed the energy produced by the Giza power plant may have been a process very different from today's. Like wireless energy that Tesla was working on. Nikola Tesla, not modern Tesla. I would like to join the architect James Hagen and other engineers and technologists in extending my utmost respect to the builders of the Great Pyramid. Though some academics may not recognize it, the precision and knowledge that went into its creation are, by modern standards, undeniable and a marvel to behold. The evidence presented in the Giza power plant, for the most part, was recorded many years ago by men of integrity who worked in the fields of archaeology and Egyptology. That much of this evidence was misunderstood only reveals the pressing need for an interdisciplinary approach to fields that have, until recently, been closed to non-academics and others outside the fold of formal archaeology and Egyptology. Much of our ignorance of ancient cultures can be placed at the feet of the closed-minded theorists who ignore evidence that does not fit their theories or fall within the province of their expertise. Sometimes it takes a machinist to recognize machined parts on or machines. As a result, much of the evidence that supports a purpose for the Great Pyramid as anything other than a tomb has been ignored, discounted without serious consideration, or simply explained away as purely coincidental. The technology that was used inside the Great Pyramid may be quite simple to understand but difficult to execute, even for our technologically advanced civilization. However, if anyone is inspired to pursue the theory presented here, his or her vision may be enhanced by the knowledge that recreating this power source would be ecologically pleasing to those who have concern about the welfare of the environment and the future of the human race. Blending science and music, the ancient Egyptians had turned their power plant to a natural harmonic of the Earth's vibration, predominantly a function of the tidal energy induced by the gravitational effect that the moon has on Earth. Resonating to the life force of Mother Earth, the Great Pyramid of Giza quickened and focused her pulse and transduced it into clean, plentiful energy. We know very little about the pyramid builders and the period of time wherein they erected these giant monuments, yet it seems obvious that the entire civilization underwent a drastic change, one so great that its technology was destroyed with no hope of it being rebuilt. Hence, a cloud of mystery has denied us a clear view of the nature of these people and their technological knowledge. Considering the theory presented in the Giza power plant, I am compelled to envision a fantastic society that developed a power system thousands of years ago that we can barely imagine today. This society takes shape as we ask the logical questions, quote, how was the energy transmitted? How was it used? End quote. Well, these questions cannot be fully answered by examining the artifacts left behind. However, these artifacts can stimulate our imaginations further than we are left to speculate on the causes for the demise of the great and intelligent civilization that built the Giza power plant. Whew. The end. That is interesting. He got into a lot of technical stuff that I'm not familiar with, and where he specifically came up with a crystal resonation or signal booster and all that stuff. Talking to engineers, I guess, electrical engineers, maybe, said that that's what would be needed. I don't know. Very interesting, though, and it gives me some ideas on some stuff, because remember, this is not just about reading these things for self-knowledge, but I'm into TTRPGs, and I'm doing some world building, so I'm gathering ideas like the pyramid power plant gives me some ideas for my world build. So I have several reasons for wanting to read this stuff. Anyway, that's it for now. I will be back to doing this again. I'm going to try to do another reading in this book on Tuesday. I want to get through this. I have thousands of books to read, and I want to read as many of them as I can on this stream. So this ongoing series. So I want to get through this book and move on to another one. So anyway, that is it for this stream. I will take a quick break, and then I'm going to come back and play a little bit of Fallout 3. Probably a short stream, but I'll play for a little bit. See you in a few minutes.
Prepare to die.